Test, test. Hello there, YouTubers. Welcome back to my channel and another live stream / another live filming session. It's the 7th of November, year 2025, Friday, both at Australian Eastern sunlight or sunlight saving time or electricity saving time / Sydney time and local Eastern China coastal time. I beg your pardon for my intermittent stuttering. Yeah, so it's so I kind of planned to to make a video to give some insightful talks about healing, specifically self-healing, and and more specifically how to apply some mind tricks, or I should say some sort of self indoctrination to trick yourselves into the suggestion, self suggestion or self insinuation that you will certainly heal. You will certainly get back on your feet, no matter how how beaten you were or you are, both in the past and in the present or at the present moment. So yeah, so that's pretty much that will be the chief the chief topic of of scope for this live stream / for this live filming session. Yeah, as we speak. So as the title suggests, yes, I do mean it that even as a man, more often than not, or not exactly more often than not, but every now and then you kind of should treat yourself like a princess or a queen to practice self-healing in order to recover from your past trauma, tragic events, or even some major catastrophes that unfortunately occurred to you in the past, and also perhaps at the present time you suffer from a series or even loads of ridicule or persecutions, say from your enemies, adversaries, that can in say, but are not limited to, say, toxic family members, your parents, or say your ex your ex boyfriend or ex girlfriend or ex spouses, blah blah blah. That sort of thing. So yeah, that sort of, yeah. And no, I'm not, trying to, to say to emasculate or to feminize you, into the notion or the, or the mindset that you should, go fanboy maxing by, by putting on or wearing women's clothing or blah blah blah, say high heels, dresses or skirts or blah blah blah. Though yes, I myself, yes, um, I do, wear high heels, though they are, it's high heels shoes for men. But yes, I do more or less admit, to the fact that my the shoes that I oftentimes wear when when while outside, do kind of appear somewhat somewhat feminine, somewhat say um, elegant in in its say appearances and overall you know looks and textures, blah blah blah. Yes. Well, but yes, I'll show you. I suppose I will show and pre- present and share with you guys about how to dress um, somewhat elegantly as a dude. In my future videos and or live filming sessions and blah blah blah. Yeah, but that's I shall leave that to my future plans, future videos, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but say just say that um, as assuming you happen to find yourself in a highly similar, if not I identical circumstance, as I do, say where in which you have pretty much utterly no one to talk about, no one to to speak with about your feelings, about your eternal struggles, your emotional turmoils, and blah blah blah. And a situation, a highly helpless situation characterized by by no family, no friends, no utterly no face to face human interaction for a prolonged period of time. Yes, then then perhaps this video may then appear to you or present itself to you at an opportune or a timely fashion. Yeah, but regardless, just bear this in mind that no matter how masculine or how much of a say games muscular games you can manage to amass or train up to game, you know just bear this in mind. Every man, each and every man has the has an intrinsic innate set of genes, set of female chromosomes, the X the X chromosomes, deeply ingrained and embedded, in you know in all our flesh, our I beg your pardon, in all our corporeal forms, yeah, to say the least. Though yes, like I said, at the very start of this filming session, I do not, recommend, that you go fanboy maxing or just, dress yourselves as a girl or as a, say a gorgeous looking female or blah blah blah. But even if that is the case, for you, and you do somehow manage, to make a fairly, you know, fairly, fairly, say you do somehow manage to get quite handsomely paid by by going fan fanboy maxing, then it is really none of my business to comment or speculate, or or judge, or to make such kind of qualified, you know you know um you know uh such kind of qualified judgment based solely on what say you enjoy you know doing during your spare time to make some kind of extra income or living, or even as your main sort of way or line of work in order to make a living, blah 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 blah. That is really none of my business, to judge or comment on such kind of matter. So yeah, but yeah, with that being said, just bear in mind, to cut yourself some slack every now and then, and to kind of I won't say that you have to submit, to stress or pressure or hardships that unfortunately either life or God or Satan or the universe keeps imposing onto us. Nevertheless, you kind of we kind of more often than not need to learn when to retreat, when to take a I beg your pardon, to take a step back, you know every now and then, and to kind of, yes, on the other hand, um, submit to those, in particular to those men that have more power, have more say, more sways in making, in 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 make, making a decision, how their lives can run their courses or blah blah blah. Just submit to them by seeking practical advice and instructions, and specifically, that comes from from a biblical verse, from a verse in the Bible, namely, say, I don't quite exactly remember if it comes from either the second e- the second epistle of um of of you know Tim, or the first. But just bear this in mind, rebuke not an elder, but in treating as a father, and that I suppose this plays and is such such verse I believe more or less it plays a vital role a vital role for those to those that have unfortunately lost their fathers, their male role model, to look up to, to seek help from, and that unfortunately yes, in include I myself, and that so doing can will likely earn you more favors, and though not necessarily more more say more grace or say or leniency, but even far from weak. Boss far from weak once said, I don't know if he once or twice or even thrice said so, but on some occasions you must make yourself appear weak than than you are, than you actually are, and that maybe kind of kind of you know alludes or allures alludes to to the notion here, to the notion I am currently sharing with and presenting to you guys about say every now and then we men kind of or should treat ourselves like a princess or like a queen, like someone that um that that I beg your pardon, someone that deserves deserves a lot of love and care. Um, and that means, more or less, you have to kind of, you know, cut yourself some slacks, by kind of, pretend that you are a beautiful girl, you are a gorgeous looking, you are an elegant looking British posh princess, or while still, that can, though I'm not necessarily, a, assigning, a rank or a hierarchy, to, based on your ethnicities or your cultural backgrounds or your nationalities and blah blah blah. I just give you a kind of a typical example there. That kind of that more or less best suits me myself or my current shitty circumstance or situation per se. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. And yeah. On the other hand, furthermore, I would like to to also share with you guys about my own interpretation, my own um you know um understanding about such saying that we die, we pretty much die, we pretty much all die on a daily on a daily um a daily basis, even far from week, once or twice some said so, in some of or at least one of his videos. Um, yeah, you know, just well, based on science, based on human physiology, say our, red blood cells, pretty much die on a daily, they all die daily, day to day, and, as, they undergo, all those chemical reactions, biochemical reactions that, that take place within our bodies, our day to day basis, say, namely, the, hemoglobin, yes, they get, you know, broken down, they get, you know, de, you know, deconstructed, in the liver, into, say, into, B bulletin, B bilibulin, bilib, bilib, bilirubin, yeah, bilirubin, and that, such substance, such chemical compound, basically assigns the characteristic color to our feces, to our, to the, the bile, the bile liquid that, liver um, produces while attempting to digest, the food we ingest. So yeah, that's, one, somewhat concrete example, I believe, about, the notion, the, about, as to, why, such example, such concrete example, pretty much, explains, why we, we die on a daily, day, daily, day to day, you know, I beg your pardon, basis, yeah, day to day basis. And not to mention, that we we lose a bit of hairs, not just hairs on right on top of our heads, but also bodily hairs, say hairs on your skins, you know, even on your pubic area, blah blah blah. They all die. They all must die in order, for the new ones, to start growing and flourishing or flourishing. Um, and also, you once you take such fact into consideration, that we all have to hibernate. We all have to get sleep. While we while we unfortunately have to live and cope with this shitty life day to day. Our once we fall asleep, our body automatically regulates our breathing, our the other biochemical reactions that that take place, that constantly take place daily, by every minute, by every second as we speak. And that certainly, attributes and also contributes or contributes, to the, to the to the to the scientific um, foundation or backbones, to substantiate or to prove, the author, to prove the truthfulness or um, the authentic nature of such saying that we all die daily, and that I believe also as one more reason as to why we should practice aggressive gratitude every now and then in order to say in order to keep ourselves in order to make ourselves feel more peaceful, more in peace with ourselves, with our say our own our past. I beg your pardon. Our past traumas, our past failures, mistakes, and the so-called say the so-called residual self image or the negative residual self image that we still kind of involuntarily re, 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 retain in order to shield or protect ourselves from further harm, you know not just harms that invade from the outside, but our own innate you know um, tendency, disposition to engage in self destructive behaviors, say like drinking, doing, though I myself don't, but I know a lot of, maybe a considerable, number or amount of you guys, out there, more or less have to rely on certain substances, maybe even illicit substances to keep yourselves sane, and that and some other, kind of shite, unfortunately, um, and blah blah blah. Yeah. So, beg upon just adjusting the the keyboard film of my PC. Yeah. Still not working so well, but never mind. Yeah. So just how should I put it? Furthermore, just stop taking life so seriously or too seriously as you used to. I know it's it's certainly easier said than done, but just try to make it occur more naturally in a highly natural fashion that fully or that largely, if not fully, complies with the with your own natural bodily rhythms or tendencies, say say the urges, say the sexual urges, or the some other urges, say to say to get sleepy, and that's precisely when your body and your mind send you the signal you know to yourself that you should go to bed ASAP. So that says, um, don't fight. Try not, to fight your bodily urges, so hard that, in order, to achieve, say a certain level or a certain rank or a certain sort of, hierarchy, say even say spiritual hierarchy pertaining to say self awakening, spiritual awakening, or something, say something more religious, or something like something like say a pilgrimage, blah blah blah. I know, I kind of, got a, quite off the topic for, when I mentioned that, but yeah, just, say comes to say emotions, learn to master your emotions, by finding, outlets, to release them, to have them liberated, in a man in such a manner, or in such a fashion, that you stand to reap the benefits instead of the loss, or the the damage, or the detriment, say, yeah, blah blah blah. And that, that can certainly, I believe, have its application, in say, in the, in the practice of practicing self healing by treating yourself like a princess or a queen every now and then. Um, say, you indulge, or you learn to participate in art, in transforming your, say, your negative emotions into something that that you can stand to benefit from. Say, as I once said, or maybe more than just once, I looked, in depth, about, to fab or not to fab, and somewhat artistic approach. Say yes, certainly, that says, in words, you can turn your lust, your sexual urges into something, say, into art. Um, and maybe also in the meantime stand to benefit from so doing. And and yes, though lust, lust or sexual urges itself, does not, necessarily, exist as solely a negative emotion. Certainly, I believe, it is more or less neutral, just like, say, money, and also a weapon, say a firearm, a pistol, or a rifle. They aren't necessarily something negative, or something, um, something, or something, you know, destructive, or blah blah blah. But instead, it all depends on how you, how you use them, how you, how you interpret and perceive them, from your own, point of view, or viewing angles, blah blah blah. Yeah, that sort of thing. Um, I beg your pardon. But yeah, what else? Yeah. So to summarize, long story short, um, yeah, cut yourself some slacks. Don't dwell, on say on those natural phenomena, say deaths, trauma, losses, failures, um, say, or even losing a loved one or multiple loved ones. I beg your pardon. Just use whatever that you can get your hands on as an edge, as an advantage. Learn to take advantage from whatever shite situation you unfortunately got yourself stranded or involved in. You know, even say even say on some occasions, learn to kind of see things from a from a female, from a feminine point of view. And I believe that more or less can actually help you get more girls, aka get more sex in return as a result of practicing such sort of style of self healing and or mindfulness. Though I don't know if that also kind of counts as a part of spirituality or spiritual practice or blah blah blah. Though like I said, it may you know like I said, to disclaim, to make a disclaimer here, please do not take what I say or whatever I've said or whatever sort of statement or conclusion I made or draw in during this live stream or in any other live streams or videos of mine here as medical advice or professional recommendations or instructions as to what you should do or what sort of steps or steps of actions you should take in order to make in order to or in order to achieve a certain outcome, a certain favorable or desirable outcomes for yourselves, blah blah blah. Just but instead, I share this from my solely from my own, point of view, from my own angles of views and thinking, based solely on my own life experience, you know, featuring shitloads of highly afflicting, highly excruciating trauma and blah blah blah. Yeah, but yeah, other than that, I don't suppose I have much else to say. You know, pertaining to such a topic that I have pre that I have presented here on YouTube to you guys out there. So, but yeah. So I I I beg your pardon. Just so you know that you know um what what counts or what um constitutes something female or something feminine or something masculine, you know, can change, can you know, can vary, you know, from you know from one from one say from one historical era or period to a to another. You know, even say high, you know, wearing high heels and say stockings or say tights. You know, it's such behavior in as a matter of fact, you know, used to symbolize masculinity back then. In the Middle Ages, you know, say a lot of shitload of those, you know, no nobles, namely French nobles, British nobles, they used, to wear, tights. Those, noble men, they used to wear tights and high heels and blah blah blah. Back then, but that, however, does not necessarily, imply or suggest or indicate, my own stance on, as to whether, men should wear them or not at the present time. Yeah, but you guys do whatever you do. You guys do whatever you find enjoyable, whatever that brings you happiness or pleasure or a sense of meaning, sense of achievement. You know, it is really, none of my business, nor my concern or my place, nor nor my my position, to make such kind of, qualified judgment as to, say how you should behave in private, how you should dress in private, or how you should dress, in front of a certain individual, or in front of a certain groups or certain group of other human individuals, blah blah blah. You know, in other words, long story short, you do what you do. I can't, really, do, um, you know, anything concrete or substantive to interfere with your life, out there, since, but regardless, I hope that you have found, this video helpful or useful or soothing, if not therapeutic or fun or entertaining to watch, since I admit that I maybe more or less, I still kind of, take even my own life, quite so seriously, to the point that I pretty much, um, rarely, laugh, rarely, make jokes. But I still, I believe, know exactly, how to make jokes, how to make fun of myself and of, of others, though I'm not, say, again, I'm not, in instructing or, or say, or trying to teach you to, to laugh or ridicule at, at others' misfortunes or tragedies, since, even to my worst enemies or adversaries, say that wicked woman, I try my utmost best, to erase her from my memory, from my life, considering her high level of toxicity. Um, though, say, in other words, I am doing my utmost best to, to let her go, to try to forget the very fact that, to even try to forget the very fact that she still exists, though, say, you know, it's I'm still struggling so much, so deeply, so much within myself, to forgive her after, all those, crimes, all those wrongdoings she committed and is committing, but still, that, certainly, such, such talk, such insightful and in-depth talk certainly qualifies for another whole another whole video. Yeah, say whether, it is whether it takes, a great deal of work, a great deal of hard work, to forgive someone who did you a tremendous deals of wrongs in the past. But, yeah, I just, don't want to, say, make you know make this video, too lengthy, by dropping, too many, say, truth bombs, and not and spiritual or non tangible number twos. you know yeah. Hi there, King. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to the program, and welcome back to I beg your pardon. Welcome back to my live stream. Yeah. How are you doing? How have you been holding up? Yeah. I'm just, as you can see, making another video, filming another live live stream, another live filming session, as you can see. And in the meantime, in the while, practicing my lousy British posh English accent here. Yeah, I'm doing okay, I suppose, at the moment. Thank God, and thanks be to you guys out there. And yeah, just I hope that, you have again. I hope that you have found this filming session, this video, helpful, and soothing, if not therapeutic and fun. Yeah. So, you know, but, in any regards, I've already, have found, my throat, my tongue, so demoisturized. Um, yeah. After, nearly an hour of non-stop talking. Yeah, but yeah, in any regards, bear this in mind. You do not, have to, say, you do not have to go completely masculinity maxing in order to become and stay far from weak, in order to remain a far from weak man, in order to remain and become a far from weak masculine man. And that, um similarly, likewise, you do not have to kill your inner child, your inner, the highly innocent, highly naive, um, parts of yourselves, in order to become a better version of yourself, in order to achieve what you have always wanted and desired to. You do not have to, remove your inner child completely out of the equation in order to evolve, in order to become adequately mature. And similarly, you do not have to erase your natural, your intrinsic feminine nature, or or part, in order to become a masculine and adequately masculine man. Since we masculine men, we all crave a feminine, a highly feminine partner or partners, more or less, and that unfortunately, or I should say fortunately or unfortunately, it means deep within ourselves we also have a benchmark, or I should say an inseparable or indispensable intrinsic part of femininity embedded and built in within ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, I suppose I have made my points clear, and I certainly hope that I managed to have done so during this live filming session. So yeah, in case you have found it soothing or helpful, somewhat helpful, if not fun or therapeutic, please consider smashing that like button at the right hand side of this video, and please consider subscribing, and and yeah, if God's still willing, thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and yeah. And if God's willing, I shall see you guys next time on YouTube, back on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, buymeacoffee.com, blah blah blah. Next time. So yeah, stay out of trouble and stay far from weak. Cheers. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Bye. Until next time. Cheers. Have a lovely weekend.